My first day with Jumpstart was on November 4th, 2019. For those of you who don't know, Jumpstart, developed in 2005, is an initiative to erase financial barriers for children so that they can have equal access to sport in order to enrich their lives. I arrived 30 minutes before the program started at a small school on Avenue Q. I was nervous, but I was ready to take on the day and have fun with the children. 25 kids started to pool into the gymnasium. I interacted and greeted them all at the door and then let them get settled in a cross-legged seat in the middle of the gym. About 5 or 6 of the children were from Indigenous descent. Through the next few months, I made connections with all the children. Although, the rest of this story will be on my experience solely with the Indigenous children. In this situation, I was curious. Maybe there was something for me to learn. Through storytelling each day, I began to grow a connection to these children. I shared my struggles and experiences with them, and they shared theirs with me. It was sort of a symbiotic relationship. I could guide and mentor them, and they could teach me things to put into my own life. I learned that most of these children were burdened by financial struggle and racial discrimination. These limitations are social determinants of their health. Linking this to the structural approach, or the tree that we discussed in class, racial exclusion is considered a distal structural determinant, while income status is considered a proximal one. As I got closer and closer to these children, I noticed other problems too. Looking at it from an Indigenous perspective, lots of these children had problems regarding at least one of the aspects of their physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual self. Mental. The children are no longer taught through traditional Indigenous ways. Rather, they have adopted a westernized educational experience. This can be consequential, as Indigenous ways of learning are often neglected in westernized education. Learning off the land has turned into learning from a desk. Emotional. Some of these children didn't have a solid outlet for emotional support. Colonialism has taken away cultural opportunities for them to come together socially. In the past, harvesting camps brought Indigenous communities together. This would help foster social connection and help contribute to positive emotional well-being. Growing up in a colonized structure, these children have been forced to find social connection elsewhere. Spiritual. It was clear that many had given up their Indigenous culture for a colonized one. The children's ancestors were driven to create a spiritual connection to the land. In the past, this relationship had been built through cultural practices. An example of one is sacrificing tobacco. The children, being products of a westernized educational system, and the fact that they no longer perform any cultural practices, have experienced a disrupted connection to the land. This has negatively affected their spiritual well-being. Physical. It was obvious that some of the children were slightly overweight. After sharing what kind of food we enjoy, it was clear that some of these children were burdened with unhealthy colonized food sources. Healthy natural foods like berries, bison meat, and wild vegetables have been replaced with unhealthy processed substitutes, which can be chock full of fats and sugars. Unfortunately, this has resulted in rising type 2 diabetes rates among the Indigenous population.
Diabetes in Indigenous people. Alex, wonderful to meet you.
Through Jumpstart, we tried to positively impact the children's lives in many ways. We opted to cut down on the traditional after-school snack and instead offer the children healthy alternatives, like apples. We tried to incorporate Indigenous games into our program. Often we were practicing lacrosse skills or playing line tag. We taught our children lessons on the medicine wheel, a common Indigenous teaching. And most importantly, we offered the children a place to belong. Once they stepped through those gymnasium doors, they knew they were part of the Jumpstart family. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, I think we should be aware and conscious of our impact on others. We should recognize how colonialism has affected the Indigenous people of Canada. We should try and understand things from the perspective of others. Above all, I think we should approach each and every day with a curious mind. Because you'll never know what someone's life is like by just looking at them.